Am I the a-hole for not sharing my grandmother's inheritance with my father? When I was 13 years old, my mother found out my father was having an affair and he got the other woman pregnant. After this came out, my father confessed he was in love with the other woman and wanted to leave my mother. She was obviously heartbroken and didn't know what to do. We had moved to a new state with my father for work, so she had no family around. My father dropped us like a bad habit soon after this came out. He attempted to keep a relationship with me, but ultimately his new family was his priority, as he said. Tough to understand for a 13-year-old, but whatever. If he didn't want me, I wasn't going to need him, so my mother and I moved on. But the only way we were able to move on was with the help of my grandmother, my father's mother. She always loved us and was appalled with what her son had done to us. He stopped seeing her as well for the most part. We became very close over the years, seeing each other for special occasions and holidays while her son was nowhere to be found. She even helped my mom out monetarily when we needed it too. Unfortunately, the years caught up with her and she developed colon cancer, advanced late stage. Her decline was rapid. Within a few months, she was in hospice. Days before she passed, she asked me to call her son to come to see her as she knew her time was coming. She'd only been to see her a couple times since she had gotten sick. When he came by, I was visiting as we did every few days and he acted like I was a random person. Grandma asked him to come back tomorrow, but he said he'd be back in a few days. She passed 4 days later without him coming back despite my calls and texts to come. She went peacefully with me and my mom by her side. That was hard. I miss her every day. She was my guardian angel most of my life, and I know she continues to watch over me. After the services, where my father did show up and make a big scene and made it about himself, we were contacted by her lawyer. Unbeknownst to everybody, she left me her house and a good amount of money, $200,000. No idea she did that, but in the will, there was a note to me from her that said, "You are worth it. Love, Grandma." She's amazing. Also in her will, she left my father exactly $1 as his inheritance. When he found out, he went ballistic, blowing up my phone all the time, demanding I give him his house and his money. His new wife and his son were messaging me a lot, and his son was writing on social media that I manipulated my grandmother. My father apologized and said he was under a lot of stress because he's in debt and was banking on this money to come in for bills and to send his son to college. That made me feel bad, like maybe I should give him something. I've thought about it a lot and I don't think I'm going to share anything with him, and I kind of think that makes me an asshole because it seems like they really do need it. But on the other hand, Kim. I don't know. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Here's a comment from Bacon, Egg, and Cheese SPK. Not the a-hole. The reason she left him $1 was to make it clear to the court in case he tried to challenge the will that she hadn't forgotten to include him, but that she intended to disinherit him. She knew that her son would try to take the money she left you. It is very common practice to leave $1 when disinheriting someone. Respect your grandmother's wishes and don't give your father a dime. Here's another comment from Young Coasty. Yes, as soon as I read that Grandma left him $1, it was clear she knew exactly what she was doing. OP, she wanted him to have exactly what she left him. Continue having no contact. You know he is not worth the headache. And here's another comment from Dropped Elbow. Clearly, Grandma was pretty sharp. And if she thinks OP is worth it, that's all that matters. Not the a-hole, but still, he is your dad. The boy is your half-brother. Blood does matter, and life is too short to remain angry. They have money problems, so it would be a nice olive branch if you help them out. Maybe take an example from grandma and send $1. That way you've doubled their inheritance. A 100% increase is not to be sniffed at. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not telling my mom about my fiance's sexuality? I, 27 male, proposed to my girlfriend Ellie, 28, and she said yes. We've dated for 6 years, lived together for 3, raised 2 cats together, and talked about marriage and having children for a long time. Title clarification. My fiance is bisexual. Before we started dating, we were friends since freshman year of college. When I met her, she identified as a lesbian, which wasn't a problem for me. I even met a couple of her ex-girlfriends and supported her through her breakups. Later, she realized that she was bisexual, and again, I supported her. Then we started dating, and I've never been happier. From the start of our relationship, I made it clear to her that her sexuality wasn't an issue for me and that I accepted her for who she is. However, she's not openly bisexual, as she doesn't feel that her sexuality is anyone else's business. For that reason, I never felt the need to tell my mom about her sexuality, as I never considered it a problem or a topic of conversation, just a fact. When I went home for dinner, I told my mom about the engagement. She was very happy. Since I'm an only child and she sees Ellie as a daughter she never had, a couple of my friends who know about Ellie's sexuality went over to the house and we had a few drinks. Drunk, one of my friends commented, "How does it feel to marry someone who slept with more girls than you?" in front of my mom. After my friends left, my mom asked me for an explanation and I revealed my fiance's sexuality to her. A little confused, she said, "Well, now that she's with you, she's not like that anymore, right?" And I denied it. "No, she's still bisexual." To which my mom got a little mad. "How can you marry a lesbian?" she asked me. I explained to her that bisexual is not the same thing. But according to her, if she has been with women, she is a lesbian. I decided not to argue with her and went back to my house. The next day, Ellie showed me a voice message she received from my mom telling her horrible things and refusing to have a daughter-in-law who uses her son as a screen to hide that she's a carpet muncher. I saw red and called my mom. Instead of apologizing, she was offended that I wasn't on her side and outed my fiancé in front of our entire family. Now, some religious relatives are opposed to coming to our wedding, even though my cousins and a couple of uncles and aunts are on our side. This has been very stressful and hurtful for my fiancé since her sexuality was always a sensitive issue for her. Her mom still doesn't accept it and kicked her out for it. And all this hate towards her makes me fear that she might decide to call off the wedding. My mom is not generally homophobic, so this new attitude of hers surprises me and makes me think that if I'd told her before, maybe she wouldn't have reacted this way. So, am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. From T to the D to the O. Not the a-hole. Keep sticking up for your fiancé. Sorry to tell you, but yes, your mom is generally homophobic. She's knowing you who she is. Another comment from What This For. Yes, your mom a NIMBY homophobic. I accept those people, but not in my backyard. Here's another comment from 4 and 3. My mom is like that. In high school, 2 girls in my group of friends and one of them was kicked out by her parents. When I was telling my mom about it, I said, "I'm so glad you would never care if I came out." And my shock that she said, "Well, no, I would have a huge problem with it actually." My mom and I had been close throughout my teen years, but that was a huge turning point for me. I had already been figuring out that I was a bi, but after that I never told her. OP is definitely not the a-hole.